So this is the modelled examples for the Emergent level, and we're going to start today with domain 1. 5.1.1, copying and saying short forward number word sequences. So I'm going to count from 1 to 7, and I want you to say it after me. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then let the learner have a go after you've modelled it. You would then want to repeat this for other numbers within the range from 1 up to 20. So you might then say, I'm going to start counting from 9, I'm going to count on to 14. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then get the learner to have a go. 5.1.2, copying and saying short backward number word sequences. I'm going to count backwards from 9 until 4, and I want you to say it after me. Ready? 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. So I've modelled it, and then you can let the learner have a go. If they're struggling with that, you might want to then do it together and help scaffold them, and then let them try independently. If they're further on and they've been practicing this and they're actually seeming quite confident, rather than modelling first, you might just come straight in with, I'd like you to count backwards from 8, and then encouraging that they're using their backwards counting ladder. 5.1.3, saying alternate numbers forwards and backwards. So for this, what you're going to do with your learner is you're going to take turns to say alternate numbers. So how you would model this is I will say 1, then you'll ask the learner to say the next number. So they'll say 2, I'd say 3, they'd say 4, I'd say 5, 6, and so on. So we like to almost describe this as like number ping pong. If you're working with a small group, you can actually just allow the numbers just to increase around the group, rather than you having to take a turn as well. But if you're working one-to-one, it would be alternate numbers. 5.1.4, saying the next number word forwards. So for this one, I'm going to count, and I want you to say the next number after I stop. Ready? 4, 5, 6. And then you would pause and ask the learner, what's the next number? And hopefully they can accurately tell you that would be 7. Then you would give them another sequence, 7, 8, 9, and then hopefully they can tell you the next number would be 10. So for this level, again, you're working in the range of 1 to 20. As soon as they're showing you they're really confident within 10, start working and extending that range into the teen numbers. 5.1.5, saying the next number word backwards. I'm going to count, and I want you to say the next number backwards after I stop. Ready? 12, 11, 10, 9. And then you would ask the learner, what is the number before 9? And hopefully they can tell you that is the number 8. Again, if they're accurate, then move on and try another example, and you're trying a few different examples of that, again within the range of 1 to 20. 5.1.6, saying the next number word after. So this is really important. We're developing the learner's language skills about the word after and understanding what that means. So for this, you're going to say, I'm going to say a number, and I want you to say the number just after the one I say. Ready? What is the number after 8? Hopefully they'll say 9. What is the number after 12? Hopefully they'll say 13. What is the number after 15? And they might actually say 14 and make a wee error there and say the number before. So again, it's just prompting, and then you could either show them the number line and say, are you confident that the number after is what you've just said? Or you might need to support them with that. But again, doing different examples within the range of 1 to 20. 5.1.7, saying the number word before. I'm going to say a number, and I want you to say the number before the one I say. Ready? What is the number before 10? Hopefully the learner will say 9. What is the number before 13? Hopefully they'll say 12. What is the number before 16? 15. What is the number before 19? 18. And then just give your learner that thinking time, and hopefully they will tell you accurate responses. If they're finding this challenging, you could support with a number line or using a number roll to allow them to see the numbers until their confidence improves. This is the modelled examples from the Emergent level. We're going to start today with the second domain, 5.2.1. And for this, it says numeral sequences forwards. So what you need to do is place out some numeral sequence cards. Make sure that they're facing the learner and that they can see these nice and clearly. And then you want to say, here are some numbers. Watch me as I count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So as you're counting them, you're pointing to each one in turn. And then you're going to say to the learner, now it's time to do it with me. So together you will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can ask the learner to do it on their own and get the learner to point to each numeral card in turn. So we're now going to move on to 5.2.2. So this just builds on the last one that we've just covered. So again, you want to place out your numeral sequence for your learner. Here are some numbers. Watch me as I count them forwards and backwards. So that's what we're adding in this time. So you would then point to each one in turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You would then ask the learner to do this with you. You would do it together and then ask the learner to do it on their own. So we're now on 5.2.3 and this is all focused on sequencing numerals. So what you need to do is lay out some numeral cards randomly arranged this time. So again, start with a small range, but then you could build it up if your learner is successfully managing to do it. You want to then ask your learner to put these cards in order, starting from number 1, from the smallest number, and watch what they do. Do they sequence them from left to right? Do they do it from top to bottom? Just notice and observe, what does the learner do? And then ask them to say the numbers in turn and point to them as they do. So we're now on to 5.2.4. So for this one, it's all about numeral recognition. So what you want to do is place out your numeral cards, again, randomly arranged. Then you're going to say a number and you're going to ask the learner to point to that number. So I would say, I'd like you to point to the number 4 and see if they can recognise where the number 4 is. And then repeat, I'd now like you to point to the number 2 and then can the learner correctly and accurately point to that number. We're now on 5.2.5, which is numeral identification. So for this one, you're going to place out a range of cards and you want them randomly arranged. This time, you're now going to just point to a card and you're going to ask the learner, what number is this? Hopefully they'll tell you it's the number 3. You will thank the learner for their response and then you will point to another card and then say, what number is this? And then again, hopefully they'll tell you it's the number 5. So we're now on to 5.2.6 and for this, the title is numeral tracks. And for your numeral track, you can use this piece of equipment. So this gets called a hide and see flip chart stand. And it has little bits of cardboard that make little flaps. So you want to start with them uncovered and you want to write out the numbers 1 to 10 to start at this level. Then what you want to say to the learner is watch me as I count forwards and backwards. So you would start by saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're pointing to each numeral in turn. And then backwards. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You would then ask the learner to count forwards and backwards as they point to each one in turn. Then what you want to do, to progress from what we covered earlier in this domain, you want to cover all the little tracks with the cardboard. And then you're going to repeat the activity. So you're going to ask the learner, what do they think is under this lid? And they're hopefully going to tell you number 1, and then again, and then they get to uncover them. And learners really like that kind of nature. It almost makes it a little bit fun and playful that they're uncovering the lids and getting to see if they're correct. So they get to check by uncovering the lid. So this is an extension of the last activity. So we still have 1 to 10 written on the numeral tract, but this time we've started with the lids covered. And what you're going to do is start with uncovering a numeral. It can be any one, it doesn't have to just be number 1. You're going to ask the learner, what number is this? Hopefully they'll accurately be able to tell you it's the number 3. And then based on knowing that's the number 3, based on knowing these go in order from 1 to 10, you're going to ask the learner, well, what number would this be? And see if they can accurately tell you it's 4, and then ask them, would they like to check? And then uncover what it is. You then might say, well, if this is number 3, what numeral is this? And then see if they can accurately tell you that that would be number 2. So again, do they know number before? Do they know number after? Can they tell you a number further up the tract? And gradually building their competence and skill with this. So we're moving on now to domain 3, which is counting visible items. And we're going to start with 5.3.1. So for this, it's counting items in one collection. So what that means is just one group of counters. The counters need to be the same colour, so as you can see, today I'm using red counters. You want to place out a certain amount of counters. Now on the planner, it says X counters. Don't let that confuse you. You just decide on how many counters you feel the learner is going to be confidently able to count, and you will vary the number that you're using. And you're going to just ask the learner, how many counters are there? And then observe and see what they do. Do they start to just count them in their head? Do they double count any? Do they omit any? Or are they accurately counting them all? Are they moving the counters as they count? Are they saying the number out loud as they count them? So what you want to encourage with this task is watch them first, don't interfere, and then as they practice, you want them to be able to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they're saying the number word at the right time as they're moving that individual counter. The next one we're coming on to is 5.3.2. So this is described as establishing a collection of giving numerosity. Do not let that wording confuse you. What it means, you're laying out one collection, one group of the same coloured counters. Now it says in the example to use about 30. That's quite time consuming. I would start with less, definitely, when you start practicing this with the learner. So I've laid out about 16 red counters. And you're now going to ask the learner to give you a certain amount from the group. So I might say to the learner, I would like you to count me out 6 counters from this group. And then observe and watch what they do. They might start with trying to work out how many there are in total, or do they just know that they now need to take and extract 6 from this group, and are they now able to do that? So what you would maybe see is them starting to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and take away the 6. They might then want to kind of work out how many's left. Just watch what they do, but that's the skill that you've asked them to do. And then you would repeat that for different numbers. So you would add them back in, and you might say, I would now like you to count me out 4 from the group, and see what they do. 5.3.3. So this one is about counting items in a row rather than a group or collection. So for this, you can either use your double-sided counters, or you can actually get dot strip cards. Either work well, and it's just what available resources you have within your school. So once you've placed out your row of dots, you want to say, watch me as I count the dots forwards and backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm pointing to each dot in turn. I'm saying the number name as I'm pointing. I'm being very slow, very clear. And then you would ask the learner to count the dots forwards and backwards. And this is an excellent foundational skill just to start, again, building on those counting principles. 5.3.5. So this is about counting items in 2 rows. So what you want to do is place out some red dots, okay? And then place out a different colour. In the example it says blue counters or blue dots. I've just used yellow, it doesn't matter, just whatever you've got in your school. So then you're going to say to your learner, here are 7 red dots. Here are 3 yellow dots. How many dots are there all together? And then just observe, what does the learner do? Do they start counting the dots that there's the most of first? Do they go from left to right, right to left? Again, just observe, what does the learner do? Are they accurate? And do they move the counters out the row, or do they just point and count? 5.3.4, counting items in 2 collections. So for this one, you want to place out a number of red counters and then place out a number in a different colour. So either blue or yellow or whatever you've got. And then you want to say to the learner, here are a certain number of red counters. And then you can say there's 6. Here are 4 yellow counters. How many counters are there all together? And then see what the learner does. Just observe, do they keep them quite separate? Do they say, I've got a 6 and I've got a 4? Or can they count on? Do they combine them as one group before they start to count? Or do they combine them as they're counting? So it's all these different wee strategies and things that you want to observe with your learner. Domain 4, spatial patterns. So we're going to start today with 5.4.1, which is ascribing numerosity to patterns and random arrays. So what this means is we're going to start with domino cards. So we're going to display them in order from 1 through to 6 to start. And we're going to ask the learner, how many dots do they see? Then once they've given you their response, repeat that for the next one. How many dots do you see? And so on, all the way through up to the 6th dot pattern. As you're doing this, you want to watch and observe the learner. Are they trying to count the dots individually, or can they subbatize, which is the ability for the learner to tell you how many dots there are in the pattern without actually counting the individual dots. So once you've done them in order, you're then going to, if they managed to do that well and they were confident at it, you're then going to do the same. You're going to display a domino pattern. You're going to ask the learner how many dots do they see, and then thank them for their response, and then show them another pattern. But this time, we're doing it in a random order. You're then going to progress to then doing what we call flashing the domino patterns. So whereas before I just showed you the pattern and kept it displayed, this time what you would do to the learner is you would say, I want you to tell me how many dots you see. Ready? So I've just flashed it and then taken it away. Once they've given me their response, I would show them another one and then take it away. So flashing is a quick show and then take it away. We would then repeat the last activity, but instead of with domino patterns, this time we're going to use what we call a random array pattern. So a random array pattern is a pattern of dots, but they're randomly displayed, so they're not on a particular set pattern. So that's what we mean by a random array. So what you would do is you would start in order first. So you would show the learner, display a pattern, hold it there, how many dots do you see? They would give you their response, you would then show them another one, how many dots do you see? So again, you would work up in order of the dot patterns. Once they're confident, they're managing that well, you would then say again, I'm going to show you it, but this time in a random order. Can they tell you? When they're really strong at that and they're managing to answer quite quickly, you would then do it flashed. So this time I'm going to show you a dot pattern, but then I'm going to take it away and I'd like you to tell me how many dots you see. Ready? How many dots did you see? And then see if they can accurately tell you. Again, this is all to develop their subitizing skills. We would then repeat the same different tasks with a pairs pattern. So a pairs pattern is a pattern that builds in twos. So you would have the first two filling first, then the second two, then the third two. And still within the emergent level, we're just working with pairs patterns from 1 to 6. So what you would do is you would display a pattern for your learner and you would ask them, how many dots do you see? And they hopefully will tell you that there's 3 dots. If they're confident, you would then move up through the patterns. So can they do 4, 5 and 6 and so on. And if they're confident, you would then move to flashed. And by that, what we mean is you would say, how many dots did you see? And with just that short flash, can they remember and tell you how many dots? So again, building their subitizing skills, but this time for pairs patterns. 5.4.2, making spatial motor patterns. So for this one, you want to display a domino card for your learners. Just ensure you're not uncovering any dots as you do so. You then want to ask the learner to make a pattern in the air, which represents the number of dots they can see. So your learner might do, or they might just do a finger, but you're wanting them to replicate the pattern that they can see on the domino card. And then you would repeat that for different types of patterns. So then you might go on to a random array pattern. And then you would ask the learner to make a pattern in the air for, again, how many dots they can see. For example, or they might want to just do 3 in like a triangle, they might do different shapes, and again, just notice and observe what the learner does. You then want to repeat that task for pairs patterns from 1 to 6 again. So you would show them the pattern and then you would ask them to make that pattern in the air. The progression of that is to show them the pattern, then take the pattern away and then ask them now to make the pattern in the air and see if they can do it without the visual in front of them. 5.4.3, making auditory patterns to match your spatial pattern. So for this one, you want to display a domino card for your learner. And you're then going to ask them to clap their hands to show the number of dots on the card. Again, just make sure that your hand, as you can see in my example there, was actually covering one of the dots. So just make sure that your learner can see all the dots. See if they can then clap for 4, knowing that it's a 4-dot pattern, and then repeat this for different numbers. You would then want to repeat this for random array patterns, and then repeat this for pairs patterns. The progression of this would then be to move from just visibly displaying the card to flashing it. So you would show it to the learner, take it away, and then ask them to clap the pattern. You could also do stomping feet or making different sounds rather than just clapping hands. We're now moving on to domain 5, which is all around building and making finger patterns. So we're going to start with 5.5.1, which is described as sequential patterns for 1 to 5, fingers seen. This means you have your fingers and hand out in front of the learner and get them to do the same. You're going to start with modelling first. So you're going to say, watch me as I use my fingers to make a number. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then show the learner whatever number you've made, and then get the learner to do that with you. So again, let's do that together. 1, 2, 3, 4, and see if they can accurately count up on their fingers with you at the same time. Then get your learner to do one independently. So you might then say, I would like you to now build the number 3 for me. How would you do that? And watch what they do. Can they go 1, 2, 3? What fingers do they use? They might go 1, 2, 3. Again, just notice and observe what the learner is up to. 5.5.2. So this one is sequential patterns for 1 to 5, fingers unseen. So what we mean by that is we're now going to take the learner's hands behind their head, and we describe this as bunny ears. So young learners love this as a kind of game. They see it as kind of fun. You can make it quite interactive. So bunny ears. So this time, don't look at your fingers when you make the number. And then you're going to ask the learner, I would like you to make the number 3 with me. So we might go 1, 2, 3 and see if the learner can do that with you. Once they've done it, you're then going to say, would you like to check, and get the learner to bring their hands round in front of them and have a wee look and see if they've accurately made the number. And it's amazing. Definitely try this yourself as part of your practical task, because it's definitely quite a different feeling making the number when you can actually visibly see your own hands and your fingers. Then you would repeat that for different numbers and make sure, is the learner always wanting to use the same hand for those numbers below 5? Do they switch and use the other hand? And again, remember, you're just working for patterns 1 to 5 at this point. 5.5.3. So this one is simultaneous patterns for 1 to 5. Fingers seen. So again, with your learner, you would want your hand in front of yourself so that your hand is nice and visible. Watch me as I use my fingers to make a number. Whereas in the last 2 tasks, we've grown the number up. This time, we're going to do what we call throwing a number. So rather than building from 1 and starting from 1, you want your learner to try and raise all their fingers at once to make a particular number. So I'm going to ask the learner to make the number 4, and you would want them to try and be able just to show you the number 4 without having to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You would model it first and then get the learner to have a go with different numbers. Then you would definitely want them to check and look and make sure they're correct. 5.5.4. So this builds on the last skill we have just done. But again, we have bunny ears, so fingers unseen. And it's important to start with your fists and not fingers up. So for this one, you want to now ask the learner to make a particular number. So I might say, I would like you to make the number 5, and then see if the learner can raise all fingers at once, rather than having to grow the number from 1. Once they've done it, you then definitely want to say, would you like to check? Get them to bring their hands down and check have they accurately managed to make the number. You would then repeat again with different numbers. So it might be now the number 3. Can they throw the number 3? Can they bring their hands round and check? 2, 1. 5.5.5, which is double patterns 1 to 5. So for this one, you're going to ask the learner to put their hands out in front of themselves. You're going to ask the learner to maybe show you 2 on their right hand and 2 on their left hand. And then you're going to ask, how many does that make all together? And see if they can tell you. And then definitely reiterate, well, 2 and 2 makes 4. And then repeat that for other doubles patterns. So maybe 3 on the right hand, 3 on the left hand. How many does that make all together? And doubles is a really important foundational skill to get your learners really confident at and to practice. And again, using your finger patterns to do that. 5.5.6. So for this one, it says, use finger patterns to keep track of temporal sequences of movement. Now that maybe sounds confusing, but that just means a movement in the air. So it could be a punch or it could be a chopping motion. So it says, watch me as I move my hand, and then you as the practitioner, you're going to make a particular motion. So I might go, and as you're doing that, you're asking the learner on their fingers to count how many times you do the chop. So as I'm doing the chopping, count how many you can see. So hopefully they have now demonstrated 4 on their fingers, and you would do that for different patterns of movement. 5.5.7. Using finger patterns to keep track of temporal sequences of sound. So this time, you're going to do a certain amount of claps, or it could be stamps of your feet or different sounds. And you're going to ask the learner to use their fingers to keep track of how many times you make a sound. So you might start with, and hopefully the learner's counted up on their fingers and they're showing you that you've made 4 claps. And again, you would repeat that with different sounds within 1 to 10. Domain 6, temporal patterns and temporal sequences. So we're going to start with 5.6.1, which is copying and counting temporal sequences of movement.
Watch me as I move my hand. I am going to make 4 deliberate chopping motions. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now do that with me. So then you would do it with the learner. You're getting them moving their bodies, making the chopping motions. Can they accurately do 4 chops? Then you're going to say to them, so this box, there's actually a few tasks within the one box. That's the first little skill. This time you're going to say, you're going to count the number of chops that I make. So you will just do a certain number of chops. You will then pause, and then you will ask the learner, how many was that? Then it's over to the learner. You're going to give them a number. So say the number 5 and ask them on their own to make that number of chops. So again, it's using that brain-body connection. Can they link the counting with a particular physical action? Are they accurately saying it at the same time as they're doing it? What's happening with that? Just observe and notice, write down anything that you see as you go. 5.6.2, copying and counting rhythmic patterns. Listen to my pattern and see if you can copy it. So it says, clap a 2 pattern. So that just means you're maybe doing 2 claps and then maybe a bank of another 2 claps. So you maybe go, and then you're asking the learner to count the amount of claps they heard. Then you might try, how many claps did they hear that time? And then another one. How many claps did they hear that time? Observe and notice, what do they do? Are they counting in their head? Are they using their fingers? Any particular little strategies? What are they up to? And are they accurately managing to count the right amount of claps? 5.6.3. So this is similar and building on the last skill that we've just done. Copying and counting monotonic sequences and sounds. Now that sounds confusing, but that's just very slow, equal-paced claps. So again, you're going to do some claps and ask the learner to count how many they hear. And then you would pause and ask the learner how many you've done. You would do similar within the range of 1 to 10, repeating a few of those. Again, this builds on the last skill we've just done. 5.6.4, copying and counting arrhythmical sequences and sounds. So for this one, it says try to count the number of times I clap. So you're doing faster, different patterns, having pauses, having different pace, and again you're doing claps within the range of 1 to 10. And can the learner accurately count how many you've just done?